There is a number sitting on your kitchen table right now that will decide how one of you lives after the other one is gone. You've probably never circled it. Most couples never do. Picture the table. Two Social Security statements side by side, the paper still creased from the envelope. One of you earned more over the years, one of you earned less. And tonight you are trying to answer what feels like one simple question. When do we turn this on? 62, so the money starts. 67, because that is what they call full. You go back and forth, you land on a number, you feel a little relief, and you file. And in that ordinary moment at the table, most couples quietly make the one decision that cuts the surviving spouse's check for the rest of their life. Not because they were careless, because nobody at that table and nobody on the phone at the Social Security office ever told them the two checks were actually one decision. Let me show you the number they should have circled. Here's what roughly 80% of married couples do. They treat his check and her check as two separate choices. He decides when he claims. She decides when she claims. Two people, two forms, two start dates, each one picked for the same reason. Get the money flowing. And on the surface, that looks fine. You are both alive, both checks arrive, the math seems to add up. The trouble is that Social Security for a married couple was never two separate decisions. It is one decision wearing two envelopes. Because at some point, one of you outlives the other. That is not a grim thought, it is just arithmetic. In almost every marriage, one check eventually stops. And when it stops, the survivor does not get to keep both. They keep the larger of the two, and they live on that one check alone. Sometimes for 10 or 15 years. So the real question at that table was never, when do we start the money? It was, which of these two checks is the one somebody is going to live on at the end? 80% of couples answer the first question and never hear the second one. Hold on to that, because it is the whole game. Now, most people have heard there is a spousal benefit, and this is usually where the confusion starts. So let me make it clean. The spousal benefit lets the lower earner collect up to 50% of the higher earner's full retirement benefit, what Social Security calls the primary insurance amount. Up to half of the bigger earner's number if the lower earner waits until their own full retirement age. Claim it early, at 62, and it gets cut hard, down to around 32.5% of that number instead of the full 50. And here's the part almost nobody knows. The spousal benefit does not grow if you wait past full retirement age. Your own benefit does. The spousal one does not. Waiting past your full age to collect a spousal check earns you nothing. There used to be a clever trick here. Claim a spousal check in your 60s, let your own benefits sit and grow, then switch later. That door is closed. For anyone born on or after January 2nd, 1954, which is essentially everyone retiring now, the rules changed. It is called deemed filing. The day you file for anything, Social Security deems you to have filed for everything you qualify for, and they pay you the higher of the two. Not both. The old have-it-both-ways move is gone. There is one more piece people trip on. The lower earner cannot collect a spousal check until the higher earner has actually filed for their own benefit. So the two decisions are wired together from the start. If the higher earner is going to delay, the couple has to plan how the lower earner bridges the gap in the meantime, because the spousal check does not switch on until the bigger record is open. That is not a reason to file early. It is a reason to plan the order on purpose. So if the spousal benefit is capped, cut for filing early, and frozen after full age, you would think there is not much strategy left. That is exactly what the system wants you to think, because the real lever was never the spousal check at all. The real lever is the survivor benefit, and this is the number they should have circled at the table. When one spouse dies, the survivor can step up to what the deceased was actually receiving, up to 100% of that check, not 50%, all of it. Whatever the higher earner had built their benefit up to, that becomes the floor the survivor gets to stand on. Sit with that gap for a second, because it is the whole reason this matters. While both of you are alive, the most the lower earner can pull off the higher earner's record is half, 50%. But the moment one of you is gone, the survivor is standing on the full check. The number doubles in importance the day the household goes from 2 checks to 1. So the benefit you were tempted to treat as small and optional while you were both healthy is the exact benefit that turns into the survivor's entire income. That is why the higher earner's claiming age is not really their own decision. It is a decision they are making on behalf of whoever outlives them. Now, connect the two pieces. Your own retirement benefit grows every year you delay past full retirement age, all the way to 70, about 8% a year in delayed credits, on top of the cost of living raises. For 2026, that cost of living bump is 2.8%, and the maximum benefit for someone who waited until 70 is around $6,000 a month. Waiting builds the check. And here is the move the system never mentions. When the higher earner delays, they are not just building their own check. They are building the survivor's check. Every delayed credit the higher earner earns gets baked into what the widow or widower inherits. Delay the bigger benefit, and you raise the floor for whichever one of you lives longest. That is the strategy 80% get wrong. It was never about starting the money sooner. It was about deciding, on purpose, which check is the survivor's floor, and then making that check as tall as you possibly can. Let me put real numbers on the table, because delay is easy to say and hard to feel. Say Ed is the higher earner. His full retirement benefit, his number at 67, comes to $2,800 a month. His wife Diane earned less. Her own benefit lands around $1,200. 2 ordinary numbers off 2 ordinary statements. Path 1. Ed does what most people do. He is tired, the money is right there, and he files at 62. That chops his benefit by about 30%, down near $1,960 a month. Diane claims too. For a while, both checks come in, and it feels like the right call. Then Ed passes first, the way the odds say he probably will. Diane steps up to his check, but his check was frozen at that reduced $1,960 the day he claimed early. That is what she lives on now, for the next 10, 12, 15 years, locked in at the smallest version of his number. Path 2. Same couple, same statements. Ed delays. In the gap years, Diane turns on her own $1,200 check, and the household leans a little lighter for a few years on purpose. Once Ed reaches 70, his benefit has grown to somewhere around $3,400, $3,500 a month. And if her own check is smaller than the spousal amount off his record, she gets topped up once he files. So money is coming in the whole time. They are not starving in the gap. They're just being deliberate about which check they lean on first. Then Ed passes. Diane steps up to that $3,400 check, and she keeps it for the rest of her life. Same marriage, same two people. The gap between those two survivor checks is roughly $1,500 a month. Every month, for as long as she lives. Run that over a 15-year widowhood, and you are staring at more than $250,000. That is the money left on the table. Same statements, two very different endings. So why does almost nobody do Path 2? Why 80%? Because the system answers only the question you ask it. Walk into the Social Security office or call the number and say, "I'd like to start my benefits." They will help you do exactly that, efficiently, politely. They will not stop and say, "Sir, if you wait, you'll protect your wife by $1,500 a month for the rest of her life." That is not their job. Their job is to process the question you brought them. The better question you were supposed to bring yourself. And everything about the moment pushes you toward filing early. The money is sitting there. 62 feels like the finish line you have been walking toward for 40 years. There is a quiet fear that the whole thing might run out, so you had better grab yours now. None of that fear does the math on the survivor. It just gets you to sign. Now, there is one honest objection, and you are probably thinking it right now. What if the higher earner delays and then does not make it to 70? It is a fair question, so let me answer it straight. Delaying the big check is not a bet on living long. It is insurance on the survivor. If Ed delays and passes at 68, Diane still steps up to whatever he had built by then, which is already larger than his 62 number would have been, and she was drawing her own check the whole time he waited. The couple is not wiped out for guessing wrong. The only way delay truly backfires is if both spouses have short lives. And if that is genuinely your health picture, then claiming earlier can be the right call. This is a strategy, not a commandment. But for a couple with normal odds and one clear breadwinner, protecting the survivor almost always wins, because the survivor is the one left holding a single check. One more trap catches people who file early and keep working. Before your full retirement age, there is an earnings limit. In 2026, it is $24,480. And above that, they hold back $1 for every 2 you earn. So the person who grabbed it early while still on the job often watches part of that early check get clawed right back. The system counts on you feeling that you won. Most of the time, quietly, you lost. Here's how you get it right, plain and in order. 1. Figure out who the higher earner is. Pull both statements, find both full retirement numbers, and circle the bigger one. That check is the survivor's floor. Every decision from here protects that number. 2. Whenever you can manage it, have the higher earner delay, ideally to 70. Not because 70 is magic for them, but because every year of delay makes the survivor's floor taller. And that floor is what one of you stands on alone at the end. 3. Let the lower earner be the flexible one. The lower earner can often claim earlier to keep income flowing in the gap years, or take a spousal benefit once the higher earner has filed. The smaller check is the one you have room to start early. The big one is the one you protect. 4. Remember that survivor benefits play by their own rules. Deemed filing, that everything at once rule, does not apply to survivors. A widow or widower can take the survivor benefit and let their own benefit keep growing, then switch later if their own becomes larger. That flexibility is a gift, and almost nobody uses it. That is the whole strategy. Protect the big check, spend from the small one, and never let the survivor's floor get locked in at its smallest possible height. If this is the first time anyone has told you the two checks are really one decision, do me a favor. Hit that like button and subscribe so the next couple sitting at their kitchen table gets this before they file, not after. That is the whole reason Walter does this. And here is your one job tonight. Do not overhaul your retirement plan. Do not call anybody yet. Just pull up both of your Social Security statements and write the two full retirement numbers down on one piece of paper next to each other. That is it. The bigger of those two numbers is the one this entire decision turns on. And most couples go their whole lives without ever seeing the two of them sitting side by side. Now, every number I gave you tonight moves with your own earnings record, your ages, and your health. This is the map, not your personal turn-by-turn. Your statement has your real numbers on it, but the strategy does not change. Protect the bigger check. Because one of you is going to live on it alone longer than either of you wants to think about. And how tall that check stands is being decided right now at your table tonight.